So today we'll start with Rajya Sabha elections. There was multiple Rajya Sabha election going on this year. There were issues related to Rajya Sabha election due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a chance that Rajya Sabha or the mode of election to Rajya Sabha may be there in your prelims topic questions. Okay. So first of all, Rajya Sabha election to Rajya Sabha. Okay. Whenever you learn parliament or whenever you learn the working composition and the offices of parliament, you should understand that the most of the questions will be from the first focus should be on the, as I said in the previous class, on the offices, important offices related to parliament. For example, there will be questions from speaker, office of speaker. There will be questions from office of deputy speaker, chairman, deputy chairman, etc. So first you focus on the office and their functions and duties, etc. Second, there will be questions from procedures. For example, election to the Rajya Sabha, election to the Lok Sabha, how no conference motion is ensured, initiated. All these questions will be there. The second part, there will be a focus on the mode of or various procedures that will be happening in the parliament, both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Election is a major topic related to that. And finally, there will be questions from the different strategies or different methods or procedures used in passing of bill, passing of constitutional bill, or how a change is initiated. All these can also be there in the topic in your question. So try to understand and remember these things because the questions will be primarily from these sectors. Do not focus on all the contents from Lakshmikant. Instead of that, you should understand the basics and then revise on the basis of these priorities. First focus on office, then focus on the procedures, including election and the general procedures, then micro procedure. The final should be focused on this final important one is that this passing of bill, constitution amendment, difference from money bill and other bills. All these should also noted. Okay, so today we will be focusing on Rajya Sabha election. What is the age criteria for getting selection into Rajya Sabha? The person must be 30 or 30. The person must not be less than 30 years of age in the case of Rajya Sabha. He should be 30 years of age. Basic criteria and eligibility should be focused on. Okay, for example, MPs of Lok Sabha, MPs of Rajya Sabha, all the basic eligibility criteria should be noted. The first one is the eligibility age-wise. Second one is how the representation is ensured for both states and UTs, union territories. That is the difference between the representation of states and union territories. For example, first one states, for the representation of state, what the procedure is that the members are elected by the elected members of state legislative assemblies. That is, state legislative assemblies or members of state legislative assembly will be electing the members to the Rajya Sabha. For example, in the Kerala, there will be 9 representatives to Rajya Sabha. Then the people 140 members of state legislative assembly will be electing the Rajya Sabha. And the election principle used is proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. It is not the normal representation type. It is proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. That is, everyone should be giving their priority and it will be evaluated. And finally, the person with most priority will be elected as the member. So, proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. And the factor that is represented to identify the number of individuals or number of members from a state depends upon the population. That is, population of the state is a factor that decides representation of states in Rajya Sabha. As there is more, for example, UP will be having more members to the Rajya Sabha because the population of UP is much higher than that of Kerala. Kerala has 9 members to the Rajya Sabha. Remember these basic things. Regarding Rajya Sabha election, you need not know about the current affairs, but you should read about the basics. Okay, next one is union territories. Union territories are entirely different from that. Only in the current scenario, we have Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu Kashmir having the legislative assemblies. That is, Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu Kashmir only have legislative assemblies in a union territory. That is only 3 union territories. That is out of 8 union territories, we have 3 union territories with representation. That is legislative representation in the federal level. That is union territories such as Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu Kashmir have the legislative assemblies. So out of 8 union territories, these 3 have representation in Rajya Sabha. These 3 have only 3 union territories have representation in Rajya Sabha, and the principle again used will be proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. And the difference is that the members of Rajya Sabha belonging to union territories are indirectly elected by members of electoral college constitute for the purpose. That is, they are not directly elected by the state legislative or legislative assembly in the union territory. Rather, it will be elected by an electoral college specifically selected for the purpose. Okay, remember this thing. The members of these organization or members of representatives from a union territory, that is Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu Kashmir, will not be elected by the members of legislative assembly. Rather, they are elected by the or indirectly elected by the members of electoral college that is constituted for this purpose. Okay, so only Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu Kashmir have representation in Rajya Sabha. Remember these things. That is also very important. And also regarding the union territories, you should remember the number of union territories in the country. That is 8 union territories are there. Remember that 8 union territories are there. That can be a very basic question. UPSC had asked similar kind of questions previously, so there will be you will be looking to this also. That is 8 union territories are there in India. And finally, regarding the Rajya Sabha election, and final topic is final idea is that representation of nominated members in Rajya Sabha. You should also remember the idea related to nominated members. What are the criteria for giving nomination to the Rajya Sabha, or what are the eligibility criteria for Rajya Sabha members? Any idea?
Literature, art, science,
yes, art, science, literature, and social science. Social service. That is art, literature, science, and social services. Art, literature, science, and social services. There is only one difference in coming to the state level, state legislative councils, SLCs. It will be art, literature, science, social service, and finally there will be an addition, that is cooperative movement. Okay, so 4 are there in Rajya Sabha. In the case of Rajya Sabha, art, literature, science, and social services. In the case of state legislative councils, these 4 plus cooperative movements. Okay, remember this thing. UPSC had asked multiple times the same question: what are the criteria for getting selection into Rajya Sabha as a nominated member or as a member of state legislative or MLC, member of state legislative council. So remember these eligibility criteria. Okay, am I clear? Any doubts regarding this? Any doubts?
no, sir.
Okay, then we will move to the next topic. Regarding Indian polity, your questions will be primarily from the basics. Okay, there will be some relation to the current affairs, but questions will be primarily and basically current affairs, fundamentals. There will not be a direct current affairs question. You can learn you can answer almost every questions from Indian polity if you are following Lakshmikant very thoroughly and revising that. Understand the exceptions or the very basic changes in these things. For example, with regard to member of state legislative council, there is also another feature of cooperative movement, and in the case of Rajya Sabha, only 4 are there. These type of differences should be known. All the questions from these Indian polity or the working of parliament and all will be analyzing your idea about the differences. Okay. So next topic is Nyaya Bandhu or Pro Bono Legal Services mobile application. That is Nyaya Bandhu mobile application. Nyaya Bandhu mobile application. This is nothing but a pro bono legal services app. That is, consider a person who does not have enough money or resources to give a case to an advocate. Consider a person who does not have any resource to appoint an advocate for his case. For getting these persons enough legal support, this Nyaya Bandhu mobile application could help them. That is, the lawyers who are interested to be working along with the system. Or so Nyaya Bandhu mobile application is nothing but it will be providing opportunity for the people without resources to get access to the advocates. That is, advocates can register in this platform so that the eligible beneficiaries can get access to the legal services. Okay, so this is Nyaya Bandhu mobile application. Second one, just understand the basics of this thing. There is no other requirements. Just understand that Nyaya Bandhu mobile application is to provide opportunities or provide services to the eligible beneficiaries. That is, legal services to eligible beneficiaries. That is only required idea regarding Nyaya Bandhu mobile application. So next one is simultaneous election. Simultaneous election, there can be questions primarily in mains, but questions will be, or questions were asked in mains, but there is a chance that they will ask the basic definition of simultaneous election in the prelims as well. So you should also understand the basic definition of simultaneous election. There will be similar ideas in your options A, B, and C. If you are going to the options provided by UPSC, there can be confusion. So try to read at least one definition of simultaneous election and understand that. Okay, the question will be basically definition of simultaneous election. So simultaneous elections is defined as structuring the Indian election cycle in a manner such that election to Lok Sabha and state assemblies are synchronized together. That is, only Lok Sabha and state assemblies. There can be a statement suggesting that it is aligning the elections of Lok Sabha, State Assembly, and the Panchayat Raj institutions or PRIs, Gram Panchayat election and all. But that is not correct. It is only making or aligning Lok Sabha elections and state assemblies. Okay, this is the basic definition. Election to Panchayat Raj institutions or local bodies are not included in that. And related to this simultaneous election, there can be certain reports or there can be certain committees related to this. First one is BP Jeevan Reddy Commission. Is related to several other topics, but he is also related to BP Jeevan Reddy Committee related to simultaneous elections. He said that when he was the chairman of Law Commission, he said that there is a requirement for making both Lok Sabha election and legislative assemblies to be held at once. So he is pro for that. Just remember these committees' name: BP Jeevan Reddy Commission. That is also related to simultaneous election. Okay, and regarding this, the requirement of we can say that simultaneous election would be better for better economically or politically. We can say that all those things, but it requires several amendments. There are amendments required in constitutions to develop a simultaneous election procedures. In the current scenario, it is not possible without a constitutional amendment, also amendment to the Representation of People's Act. That is, implementing this measure will require multiple constitutional amendments and amendments to Representation of People's Act. Remember this. Okay. So this is related to simultaneous election. If you have any doubt, please let me know. Just clarify and go. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Next one is electoral bond scheme. Electoral bond. Okay, electoral bond scheme. It is primarily aimed at, or it is a financial instrument for making donations to political parties. That is, it is primarily aimed at providing political donations. Our party can get donations from individuals and corporations with the help of electoral bonds. So the bonds are issued in multiples of 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 crore, and without any maximum limit. That is, the valuation will be 1,000, 10,000, and its multiples. 1 crore is there, and finally there is no limit. Any amount can be given to any political party. There is no limit for donating to a political party through electoral bond scheme. And the State Bank of India is the, remember this, State Bank of India is the issuing authority. That is, State Bank of India is authorized to issue and encash these bonds, which are valid for 15 days of date of issuances. That is, an electoral bond is valid for 15 days from the date of its issuance. That is, within 15 days, the political party must encash the entire amount. Or if they fail to encash within 15 days, it will not be transferred to their account. That is, the bond become invalid. So State Bank of India is the issuing authority, and secondly, there is a 15 days validity. That is, within 15 days, the political parties must encash the amount. And it can be encashed by an eligible political party only through the bank account. It cannot be, bank account is necessary, and these bonds can be encashed only through the bank account. There can be a statement. It can be encashed or get cash in hand. That is not correct. The point is that it can be encashed only through a bank account. And then is, the bonds are available for purchase by any person who is a citizen of India or incorporated or established in India. That is, it can be brought by a citizen of India or any corporations, any establishments within India. That is, everyone in India or who is a part of India can purchase this bond. And this will, you cannot buy electoral bonds in every day or on an everyday basis. Rather, it will be available on January, April, July, October. That is, first 10 days of January, April, then July and October. It will be available for the first 10 days of January, July, then April, sorry, January, April, July, and then finally October. First 10 days of these months. Okay. And finally, the final point is that the entire electoral bond scheme or electoral bonds are anonymous in nature. Anonymous in nature. That is, the bond will not bear the name of donatee or the donor. That is, the bond will not be having the name of the donor. So these are the basic principles. That is, things you need to understand or remember is that there is no limit. There is a 15 days validity period. There is State Bank of India is the official issuer of electoral bond scheme, and it can be only encashed through a bank account, and it can be brought by citizen of India or any corporation or any establishment within India, and it is primarily available in January, April, July, October. That is first 10 days of these days, and finally it is anonymous in nature. Okay, these information are necessary for your prelims examination. Okay, am I clear? Any doubts?
Sir, interest bearing bonds.
No, there will not be any interest. It is not a investment instrument. It is just a method, or it is just there to ensure transparency in political funding. You can buy the bond and you can transfer it to the political party. Okay. Then next topic is AWEB. Next topic is Association of World Electoral Bodies, or AWEB. Association of World Electoral Bodies. Just remember this. This is the largest association of election management bodies throughout the world, and it was established in 2013. Okay, it was established in 2013. It is the largest association of election management bodies, and its permanent secretariat is located in Seoul and Seoul, South Korea. And then the aim is to bring efficiency, effectiveness, fairness, etc., and bring participative elections worldwide. And Election Commission of India has completed 1 year of chairmanship of AWEB. Currently, Election Commission of India is the chairman holding the chairmanship of AWEB. Remember these things. It is established in 2013. Permanent Secretariat in Seoul. It is the largest election management body, and currently, Election Commission of India is holding the chairmanship of AWEB. Okay, these are the information you require. All the questions or anything related to AWEB can be answered with this question or these factors. Okay. Next one is Roshni Act. Just a basic thing that is not that important, but there can be a question on Roshni Act, or just a single liner question. Roshni Act. It was recently it became, or it declared null and void after the change in Jammu Kashmir. Jammu Kashmir become Union Territory, or Jammu Kashmir States Land Act is known as Roshni Act. Jammu Kashmir States Land Act is also known as Roshni Act. It recently become null and void, and it tried to regularize the unauthorized land. That is, the act envisages the transfer of ownership rights of state land to its occupants. That is, it is like just like giving patta to people. That is, Roshni Act primarily aims that it will be transferring the unclaimed lands, or the unauthorized lands, or people living somewhere unauthorized. This act tried to regularize that lands, or giving patta to those people for subject to the payment of a cost. There will be certain cost. It is not a free of cost operation. It is on the basis of payment. And this act is known as Roshni Act only because the amount or the revenue generated by transferring these ownership rights to individuals will be used to generate hydroelectric power, or it will be spent on commissioning hydroelectric power projects. So these are so it is known as Roshni, or light, or electricity, and are related to that. So this is the basic idea. It was there in Jammu and Kashmir. Currently, it is declared null and void. The aim is to transfer the ownership of unauthorized land to its occupants for a payment of cost. Okay, so remember these things. There is a less chance that this will be in your prelims examination. And next one, next topic is very important. That is Lok Adalat. Lok Adalat and E-Lok Adalat. Okay. Lok Adalat is very important. It is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. That is, it is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism to deliver cheap and expeditious judicial services to the common people. First one in 1982, it was for first time in 1982 in Gujarat. This was first Lok Adalat was initiated. At that time, it was not statutory or constitutional or anything like that. They just conducted a Lok Adalat in 1982 in Gujarat, and as it become more and more popular over the time, within 5 years it become more and more popular, and it was identified that log adalats can provide better services, better judicial services cheaply to the masses. So in 1987 we have adopted a law known as National Legal Services Authority Act. 1987 we have adopted National Legal Services Authority Act, or NALSA Act. This has initiated a statutory backed Lok Adalat system, or Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, given for Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987 provided for the development of statutory organization known as Lok Adalat. Under this act, that is Legal Services Act or NALSA Act, it has created different. 1 minute. Okay. Lok Adalats were created in different levels. That is, in national level there is a Lok Adalat, then state level is there, then district level is there, and also local level is also there. The primary idea of Lok Adalat is that it will be providing services, legal services to individuals very cheaply. And there is, for example, this Legal Services Act of 1987 provided for National Legal Services Authority, State Legal Services Authority, District Legal Services Authority in the regions. So these service authorities will be initiating the Lok Adalat. That is, every Lok Adalat organized for an area shall consist of such number of serving or retired judicial officers or other persons of the area as may be specified by agency organizing. That is, to conduct an Lok Adalat in a region, there is certain requirements. There is certain requirements for retired serving or retired judicial officers and other persons of area, persons of that area specified by the agency. For example, if the Lok Adalat is considering to be conducted for a agriculture loan, there must be certain number of serving or retired judicial officers plus the persons with official knowledge about those areas, that is related to agriculture loan dispersal, etc. That can be determined by these agencies, that is NALSA, State Legal Services Authority, District Legal Services Authority, etc. And the Lok Adalat consists of judicial officer as the head or the chairman of the Lok Adalat. That is, judicial officer who has been selected for this will be acting as the chairman. That is, judicial officer will be chairing the Lok Adalat, and other members can, social worker or other lawyers can be members of Lok Adalat. Okay. Am I clear? Any doubts regarding Lok Adalat? This is very important. There is a high chance that Lok Adalat will be asked in this year prelims. Any doubts? Okay, I hope I am clear. Next one. There are certain jurisdictional powers, or the jurisdiction of Lok Adalat is defined. That is, Lok Adalat can take certain kind of cases. For example, it can take any case pending before court. That is, generally, in a general sense, Lok Adalat shall have no jurisdiction in respect of any case or matter relating to offense not compoundable under any law. That is, the cases that is getting more than 2 years of lifetime. They cannot take cases that is getting more than 2 years of life punishment cannot be taken by Lok Adalat. All the other cases can be taken by Lok Adalat. That is any case pending before the court. Next one is any matter which is falling within the jurisdiction of court and is not brought before the court. That is, certain cases are still pending or does not even filed in a court can be initiated. For example, an NPA, non-performing asset, or an agriculture loan that is becoming an NPA also, then bank officers can request for a Lok Adalat, or this can be discussed in a Lok Adalat. That is, even though this is not in court, the bank and judicial officers can initiate the process of Lok Adalat. At that time, people can say that why they are not paying. Is there any issues? They will be managing, or they will be bargaining with bank officers, and they will be identifying an amicable solution. That is the primary idea of this thing, or primary idea of Lok Adalat. Instead of going directly to court and delaying the process of justice, or going through all the procedures of court, they will be discussing, bank will be discussing, or the members of banks will be discussing with the individuals, and they will be getting into a amicable solution. So any case pending before the court can be taken by the Lok Adalat, or any matter which is falling within the jurisdiction of any court and is not brought before such court can be identified or initiated, or any case pending before the court that can be referred to Lok Adalat. That is, a court can refer these to Lok Adalat. Any case can be represented by the Lok Adalat as the recommendation of court. And then matrimonial matters such as matrimonial, family disputes, criminal compoundable cases, land acquisition cases, labor disputes, workman compensation cases, bank recovery cases are being taken up by Lok Adalat. That is, all these things, matrimonial and even matrimonial and family disputes can be taken by Lok Adalat. And Lok Adalat have the same powers as are vested with the civil court. That is under the CPC, Civil Procedure Code of 1908. That is, Lok Adalat have the power of a civil court. And Lok Adalat, the final verdict given by the Lok Adalat will be binding on all the parties. There will not be any appeal shall lie to the court against the award of Lok Adalat. That is, you cannot go to, if you are obeying or if you are accepting the verdict given by a Lok Adalat, you cannot go to a court. That is the final verdict given by the judiciary, and it must be accepted, and it is binding on all the parties. So there is no appeal available for Lok Adalat. And next one is E-Lok Adalat, that is Delhi State Legal Services Authority has initiated a E-Lok Adalat. That is nothing but e-process. For example, after the COVID-19 pandemic, there will be certain issues to conduct Lok Adalat. That is, it is a huge crowd. You cannot control these crowds in Lok Adalat. So what happened is that Delhi conducted E-Lok Adalat. Just remember that. The other thing is the most important. Okay, this is Lok Adalat. I hope I am clear. Next one is National Recruiting Agency. National Recruiting or National Recruitment Agency, NRA. While learning National Recruitment Agency, you should also go through the National Testing Agency. There is difference between National Recruitment Agency and National Testing Agency. National Testing Agency will be primarily focused on taking up the entrance test for NEET, PGI entrance, etc. At the same time, National Recruitment Agency will be conducting preliminary examination for various recruitments in central governments. That is, preliminary examination for various government jobs. That is government recruitments. There will be the primary idea is that there is a common eligibility test for non-gazetted Group B and Group C. That is, that for Group B and Group C, there will be a common Group B and Group C. Non-gazetted Group B and Group C, there will be a common entrance test. That is, NRI will be conducting this common entrance test. It will be conducted for IBPS, RRBs, SSCs, etc. for all these staff selection commission, etc. And this idea is that it will be providing a common entrance test and it will be providing a mark sheet which will be valid for certain period of time. That is, it will be valid for 3 years of time. NRI will be, or the common eligibility test and their mark will be valid for 3 years of time. During this time, with the reference of this marking, candidates can attempt the mains or the second level of any of the recruitment according to the eligibility criteria. This is the idea of NRI. You should also remember NTA, that is National Testing Agency. At the same time, you are learning about National Recruitment Agency. Both are similar in nature. The difference is that NTA will be focusing primarily on the entrance test, for example, NEET, PG entrance, etc. At the same time, National Recruitment Agency will be conducting the preliminary examination for government recruitment. Okay, and these exams will be currently conducted in or being conducted in 12 languages. There are 12 languages support or 12 language support will be there. Remember this thing. Okay. This is National Recruitment Agency. Next one is National Medical Commission, NMC. Next one is National Medical Commission. National Medical Commission, NMC. This is also important. That is, National Medical Commission has replaced Medical Council of India. Or the previously Medical Commission of India was related to the medical institutions, medical professionals, or how to rank medical professionals, etc. Currently, National Medical Commission has replaced the Medical Council of India. There will be next point is that there will be 33 members in NMC or National Medical Commission, which will be chaired for the 3 years by Suresh Chandra Sharma. No need for that name, Suresh Chandra Sharma. Primarily, remember that there are 33 members in National Medical Council, and apart from chairman, there will be 10 ex-officio members and 22 part-time members appointed by the central government. That is, central government will be appointing the members to the National Medical Commission. Central government will be appointing members to the National Medical Commission. And functions is to the same functions of this is same function of Medical Council of India, laying down policy for regulating medical institutions and medical professionals, assessing the requirements of human resources and infrastructure in the healthcare, and ensuring compliance by state medical councils, and finally framing the guidelines for determination of fee for 50% of seats in private medical institutions. That is, what is the fee for these 50% government seats in private medical institutions? That is the basic idea of NMC. The same thing, difference is that its composition currently it is 33 member association. It replaced Medical Council of India. The aim and objectives are same. Okay. Next one is National Human Rights Commission, NHRC. This is already also already there in your Lakshmikant. Go through that also. The first one is National Human Rights Commission. It was established in 1993. First thing you need to understand is it was established in 1993, and it is an independent statutory body under the provisions of Protection of Human Rights Act of 1990. Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. Okay, it was created under the provisions of Protection of Human Rights Act. Recently, in 2019, there was an amendment in NHRC or Protection of Human Rights Act, and you should remember the changes that has been brought into Protection of Human Rights Act in 2019. So that is the primary focus point here. You should read the fundamentals from your Lakshmikant. The other thing will be covered here. That is Protection of Human Rights Amendments Act 2019. It provides that the bill provides for a reduction of tenure of chairpersons of National Human Rights Commission and State Human Rights Commission to 3 years from current 5 years. This in 2019. Currently, it was, or before 2019, it was 5 years. It was brought into 3 years. Tenure was reduced. That is, NHRC chairman's tenure was reduced. NHRC and SHRC chairman's tenure was reduced. Next one is the Act allow for the reappointment of members of NHRC. That is, second idea is that it provides for reappointment of members. That is, even reappointment of members in NHRCs and SHRCs for a period of 5 years till the age of 70 years. Until they attain the age of 70, they can be reappointed. And earlier Chief Justice can only be the chairman of NHRC. Currently, it has been changed to Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or Judge of Supreme Court can be the chairman of NHRC. Previously, it was only CJI. Currently, it is CJI plus Judge of Supreme Court. Remember these changes. There will be questions based on these changes, or statements will be directly picked from these changes. And next change is that it provides for including the chairpersons of National Commission for Backward Classes, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, Chief Commission of Persons with Disability as members of NHRC. That is, there is Child Rights, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights is there, Backward Classes is there, and also the Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, PWDs, or Divyangs will be there in NHRC. And it also says that among the 3 new members or members of NHRC, one must be women. There should be 1 women member in NHRC. And it also says that in the case of SHRC, a Chief Justice of High Court or Judge of High Court can be appointed as chairperson of SHRC. That is, CJ of or Chief Justice of High Court or Judge of High Court can be appointed as SHRC. These are the changes. Remember these changes. Also go through the fundamentals or basics of these NHRC and SHRC from Lakshmikant. That is also very important. It says that CJI, instead of CJI, CJI and Judge can be appointed. There is 3 new additions. That is National Commission for Backward Classes, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and National Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disability will be the part of NHRC. And the tenure of chairman was reduced from 5 years to 3 years. These are the important changes recently brought into NHRC and SHRC through the acts or amendment act. Okay. Next one is Law Commission of India. In this session, we will be focusing on the important commissions and all. Next one is Law Commission of India. It is neither a constitutional body or a statutory body. It is primarily an executive body. It is an executive body created under the order of Government of India. The primary aim of Law Commission of India is that to bring reforms in the legal system or to bring legal reforms in the country. And the commission is established for a fixed tenure and work as an advisory body to Ministry of Law and Justice. The commission will be working as an advisory body to Ministry of Law. Advisory to Ministry of Law. And primarily Law Commission of India consists of legal experts. Legal experts will be the member of Law Commission of India. If you say historically, you can say that first such Law Commission was initiated under the Charter Act of 1833. Under the Charter Act of 1833, that was in 1834. headed by Lord Macaulay. Lord Macaulay. This commission recommended the codification of penal code, criminal procedure code, and finally in 1861, 1860s, Lord Macaulay himself created the IPC and CRPC currently we are using. So remember that historically you can say that it was under 1833 Charter Act of 1833, the first law commission was initiated in British India. Next one, National Crime Record Bureau, NCRB. Next one is National Crimes Record Bureau. This is also important. It was set up in, it was headquartered in New Delhi and created by the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1986. The primary function of NCRB is to work as a repository of information on crime and criminals, so as to assist the investigators, or when there is a crime, there will be definite data within the government machinery. That is, National Crime Record Bureau has a function to keep the information regarding the crime and criminals. Okay, remember just these things. And it was set up based on a recommendation of NPC, National Police Commission, and the MHS task force. There is a task force and all. It was created in 1986. Okay. Next one is Committee on Content Regulation in Government Advertising. This is also important. CCRGA, Committee for Content Regulation in Government Advertising, CCRGA. It was recommended by Supreme Court in 2015. Supreme Court in 2015 suggested that the government of India had to set up a body to control the contents or regulate the contents published by government advertising. So in 2015, Supreme Court suggested that there should be a committee to control or coordinate or monitor the contents published by government advertising. In 2016, the government of India created a 3-member body to evaluate the situation or the contents that has been passed through government advertising. It is empowered to address complaints from general public and can also take suo motu cognizance of any violation of Supreme Court guidelines and recommend the corrective action. That is, CCRGA can take complaints from general public, and also it can take suo motu cognizance of any violation of Supreme Court guidelines and recommend corrective action. The committee, if necessary, can also decide to summon the concerned official of the government agencies. If needed, this committee or CCRGA, Committee for Content Regulation in Government Advertising, can summon the concerned official from the government agencies dealing with the release of advertisements. And for mains, we can also add the Supreme Court guidelines. That is, Supreme Court guidelines states that the content of government advertisement should be relevant to the government's constitutional and legal obligations. For example, government cannot publish an advertising for the Reliance Industries, or government cannot publish an advertisement for somebody else. It should be relevant to government's constitutional and legal objectives, and it should be designed to meet the objectives of campaign, or advertisement material should be designed to meet the objectives of the campaign and ensure maximum reach in a cost-effective way. That is, for example, if the advertisement is available for 1 lakh, you should go for that instead of a 1 crore advertisement in the similar settings. So it should be cost-effective, and finally, it should not be used to promote the political interest or political interest of the ruling party. It should be focused on the working constitutional mandate of government only, not the political interest of ruling party. These are the recommendations by Supreme Court. Okay, I'll be giving notes on all this. Just remember, just try to get the data or information from the class. I'll be giving brief notes on all this. Next one is National Program and Project Management Policy Framework. National Program and Policy Management Framework. National Program and Project Management Policy Framework. NPP, MPF അല്ലെങ്കിൽ NPMPF എന്ന് വിളിക്കാറുണ്ട്. NPMPF, that is National Program and Project Management Policy Framework. This is a policy framework developed by Niti Aayog and Quality Council of India. It is developed by Niti Aayog plus Quality Council of India, QCI, which proposed for a 4-level certification system for project managers linked to project scale. That is a 4-level, it is a certification system or a framework developed by Niti Aayog in association with Quality Council of India. The framework primarily focuses on accountability, monitoring, transparency, and a corruption-free system to ensure a fast-track decision-making process. For example, it primarily focuses on the infrastructural projects. Primarily focuses on infrastructural projects. That is the infrastructures that is required for or required for the development of country. That is currently India is going through a fast development of infrastructure projects, or new infrastructure projects has been developing, or several infrastructure projects are in pipeline. So this NPMPF or National Policy Framework for or Project Management Policy Framework primarily focuses on bringing efficiency in the development of infrastructure and other development projects. That is, it will be monitoring and bring accountability for the system. So the question here will be, there can be a single line question or a single option question where they will be saying what is the objective of NPPM or NPMPF. What is the objective? You can say that it aims to bring efficiency and effectiveness to the various projects, including infrastructure and development. Or the next question will be, NPMPF was developed by Niti Aayog alone, and the second statement similar. The function of NPMPF will be this. We should identify the wrong statement. That is, it is developed by Niti Aayog and QCI, and it has a focus on improving efficiency and accountability in the projects, various projects. Okay. So next one, Data Governance Quality Index. After this, next one is Data Governance Quality Index. Data Governance Quality Index, DGQI. Data Governance Quality Index, it is a survey conducted by the Niti Aayog or a sub-office within the Niti Aayog, that is Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, DMEO, Niti Aayog, to assess different ministries, departments, ministries and departments performance on the implementation of central sector scheme and centrally sponsored scheme. That is, it primarily focuses on identifying the implementation of, or Data Governance Quality Index primarily focuses on identifying the quality of implementation of central sector scheme and centrally sponsored scheme. That is, it aims to improve the healthy competition among the various sectors. That is, for example, it aims to, or it tries to use the data generated by various organizations, to improve the quality of services provided by the government, or improve the how to improve the implementation of central sector schemes and centrally sponsored scheme. That is the major objective of Data Governance Quality Index. For example, dashboardization can be seen as a part of DGQI or data governance. Data-based governance can be used in government sector or the services provided by government sector on the basis of data. Next one is National Investigation Agency. All these are very small topics, you just have an idea. National Investigation Agency, it was created after the Mumbai terrorist attack in 2008. It is a central agency to investigate and prosecute offences affecting sovereignty, security, and integrity of the nation, and the friendly relation with the foreign state, against atomic nuclear facilities, etc., and attacks related to smuggling in high quality counterfeit Indian currency. That is, there are three aims of NIA. NIA will be focusing on: first one, security of the nation, including friendly relation with the various states. Second one, atomic or nuclear attacks. And finally, high quality counterfeit notes. High quality smuggling of high quality counterfeit notes. Okay, just remember this thing. It was established in 2008 after the Mumbai attack, and these are the functions, or these are the regions where it focuses on. And it acts as the central counter-terrorism organization. It acts as the central counter-terrorism law enforcement agency, or central counter-terrorism organization. Central counter-terrorism law enforcement agency. It acts as the central counter-terrorism law enforcement agency. And the final topic is CCI, Competition Commission of India. Competition Commission of India. Competition Commission of India, or CCI. It is a statutory body. Competition Commission is a statutory body created under Competition Act of 2002. Competition Act of 2002. This act was initiated by replacing the existing MRTP, or Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. MRTP, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. It was replaced by Competition Act of 2002. Okay, Competition Act of 2002, and Competition Commission of India was created under this act. It was created after the recommendation of Raghavan Committee. It was created after the recommendation of Raghavan Committee, and the primary aim of Competition Commission is to ensure robust competitive environment in economy. It was aimed to provide robust competitive environment for the economy, and it consists of one chairperson and 6 members as per the Competition Act. That is one chairman, and second one, 6 members. One chairman and 6 members are there. Okay, so another idea is that CCI is a quasi-judicial body. Just to understand the very basics, there is nothing other than this required. CCI is a quasi-judicial body. It is a statutory body. It is created under the Competition Act of 2002. This Competition Act replaced MRTP, and it was recommended by Raghavan Committee, and it consists of one chairman and 6 members. All are full-time members. And finally, CCI is a quasi-judicial body. Remember these things. Any questions from this sector can be answered. Okay, you got my point? Any doubts regarding any of the topics? These are the important topics or important organization for your prelims examination related to Indian polity. Read this. Also go through the constitutional, non-constitutional statutory bodies in your Lakshmiga. Along with this, with that, you should also read about these things. Okay.
Sir, സാർ ഇതിൻ്റെ നോട്ട്സ് നമുക്ക് പ്രൊവൈഡ് ചെയ്യില്ലേ കുറച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട്?
Yes. ഇപ്പൊ തന്നെ ആഡ് ചെയ്യും.
ഓക്കെ സാർ, താങ്ക് യു സാർ.
Okay, just go through these notes. Okay, no need for anything else. Just go through whatever there in notes should be learned. That is the basic idea. Do not regarding current affairs, I'll be giving you an advice, that is do not try to read all the current affairs materials. Just go through one. Okay, select whichever is comfortable for you, identify that and read that. There is no requirement for all the current affairs materials. If you are comfortable with ours note, that is good, go with that. If you are not comfortable, you want some other note also, go for that also. Beyond that, that is not a requirement. Do not go or do not read multiple notes every day. For example, Insights is there, Vision is there, then new academies and new institutes and online platforms will be there. Everybody will be saying that this is good, this is good, this is good. Do not fall for that. Try to read at least one topic from all this, and you should identify or understand the comfortability level. If you are comfortable with Vision, then go for that. If you are comfortable with Insights, go for that. Okay. So that's it for today. This 2 p.m. value addition session will be 1 hour based. It will be happening on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Next session will be on Saturday. In that session, we will also understand or identify certain other topics related to Indian polity in the past few months. Okay. If you have any doubts, please let us know. And also, if you want a mentorship session from by our mentors, do register in the link provided earlier today morning. Register on that. And thank you for being with us. If you have any queries or doubts or feedbacks, please let us know. Thank you.